This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Monday, March 15th, 2010, and this is episode 694 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hochberg of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
I've tagged him with a locator during an unauthorized field trip. Otherwise, I'd be traveling with you.
Matt's favorite ride.
Yay.
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 Dinosaur. Woohoo.
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 Also joining us on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World. And Len, yesterday was the first episode of the new miniseries The Pacific on HBO, and I'm hoping it was really good.
Oh, yeah, it was fabulous. Didn't you see it? It was like
I did
Europe.
It.
It was like the European theater, but 12 hours earlier.
12 hours earlier?
Yeah. It was weird. Totally weird. It was like everything was happening at night when it should have been during the day.
Well, if it was on NBC, they would air it all at 8 o'clock.
Exactly right, with time delay tape. Nice.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Did we change formats? Are we not?
Yeah, we're talking about now. It's the old Tom Hanks channel.
Oh, okay. I like Tom Hanks.
Also joining us on today's show is the fabulous Annette Owens, a manager of customer relations and group services for MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. Welcome, Annette.
Hey, guys. I'm completely clueless about what you guys are talking about.
Well, if we could edit out the last part of that so she could just end after clueless, that'd be great.
I'm going to make that a drop. I'm completely clueless. I'm completely clueless.
Out of context quotes are the best, aren't they?
Well, they sure are.
And our special guest today is Tim Krasniewski of DVCnews.com. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you back on the show, Tim. And, you know, we've had you on, Tim, to talk about a number of different aspects of Disney Vacation Club. And, you know, the one issue I think the most common question people always get is, well, you know, should I buy into DVC? And it's such a personal matter. And rather than try to like list the pros and cons, because it's so different. I mean, you know, you could list out 8 pros and none of them would apply to me, but, you know, one might that you might not have listed, and that's the one that does it for me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's such a subjective matter. So we thought, why not talk about, we have 3 members of this panel who have bought into DVC, yourself, Tim, Mr. Newell, and Annette. And we thought we'd talk about what compelled you guys to actually take the plunge and buy into DVC, and in some cases, buy into DVC many times. Looking at you, Newell.
Look away. Look away.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So let's start with you, Tim. Obviously, there was a point where you were not a DVC member. And what year did you buy into DVC, Tim?
2003.
2003. Okay, so tell us the circumstances that led to you buying DVC. Was this a one-time thing? You went on the tour first time and you were like, wow? Or was this something you were kind of mulling over?
You had this pile of cash in your living room, just sitting there, having to dust it. Lost a bet, exactly.
Won the lottery. Uh-huh.
And there I was, dusting this pile of cash, thinking, when am I ever going to get rid of this?
And now, folks, let's hear from Tim.
All right, Tim.
Thank you,
You
Mike.
were going to say something? Now would be a good time to start talking. Anytime now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No,
Speak up. Speak up.
Will you let the man speak?
I can't get in.
You got to be forceful, Tim. You just got to step all over them.
Just gonna jump
We
right
have
in.
derailed.
That's our show for tonight.
Good.
We bought into Saratoga Springs in 2003. It was shortly after they started offering it, and we had previously rented points a couple of times and stayed at Old Key West, and so DVC was something that was kind of in the back of our minds, dating back to late 2001, 2002, and but the circumstances weren't quite right. Our son was young, and my wife was pregnant, but fast forward, probably the proverbial tipping point for us was price. Saratoga Springs came along at a good time. It was the first resort since Old Key West that DVC offered with a full 50 years. For a period of time there, as they introduced new resorts, they kept tacking on this 2042 ending date because all the DVC contracts do end at some point. And so the contracts were getting smaller and smaller as they introduced new resorts. And then along came Saratoga Springs, which was a full 50 years from 2003 to 2054. And the price was good, and we took the plunge.
Now, what was it about it for you, Tim? Like, what were the maybe the top 2 or 3 reasons you bought into DVC?
Our primary motivation was probably a combination of wanting to upgrade to something larger than a standard hotel room. We had, like I said, we'd rented points, and we stayed in a 2-bedroom villa at Old Key West with my parents. So there were 5 of us in a 1,200 room suite, and kind of looking around thinking, wow, this isn't a bad way to vacation. So that was a real motivating factor, having young kids and being able to lay them down for a nap in the other room while we go on with our lives, and having that washer and dryer and a kitchen so we could, some people want to dine out on their vacations. We're more of a, let's be relaxed. And if I have to pour a bowl of cereal in the morning or make a ham and cheese sandwich for lunch, that's not a big deal for me if we're in the room. So having that larger room was a big factor, and another one obviously is just kind of being in that set vacation mode, the prepaid vacation concept of knowing that you've got the points, you can book whenever you want, kind of forces you to take a vacation and that sort of thing.
Let me ask you this, Tim. What was a reason you were hesitant to buy into it? I'm sure it wasn't like a slam dunk necessarily. This is a lot of money, obviously. So was there anything that was going through your mind, like the con side of it, like, I'm really not in love with blah, but you still went for it? Yeah,
I think probably my biggest fear at the time was sort of just the word timeshare. If you haven't done your homework and somebody says the word timeshare to you, that's kind of a cringeworthy situation to many people. So, even though Disney they call it a club and they sort of, gloss over that aspect, it truly is a timeshare. It's different from the timeshare model that some people may be familiar with, where you're stuck with the same week every year at the same location and no flexibility and that sort of thing. DVC is obviously a points-based system where you can stay at, any one of, 10 or 11 Disney resorts now. DVC resorts plus other Disney locations. And you can go for one night or you can go for 30 nights, whatever you have the points for. You could stay in a studio. You could stay in a 3-bedroom grand villa. So I think the flexibility and to some extent the Disney name sort of softened the blow of the, it's a timeshare aspect.
What about you?
Go ahead. Were you the one that was primarily most excited about this, or was your wife kind of the one who was pushing the purchase along?
I probably was the one who kept things moving along. After it was probably about 9 months after our trip where we rented points that we decided to buy. And with my wife, she got back and just sort of went on with her life, and being the more obsessive compulsive one of the family, I kind of kept my ear to the ground and kept an eye on DVC, and when the circumstances presented themselves, we talked about it and took the plunge.
What about you, Annette? What compelled you to buy into DVC?
Well, we're a family of 5. So that always became an issue with going down to Disney. We already had a timeshare that was not with Disney.
Oh.
So we were going down and staying off property, and there's just nothing like staying on property. Nothing like staying on property. So, and as the kids get bigger, they want to bring friends. So you need that 2-bedroom unit. And that's what we have used it for, is the kids, all teenagers and early 20s, they bring a friend with them when we go down. So we need that space. The kitchen is a waste for me. In there, it houses the soda and the snacks, but that's it. We still head out to the parks, but we don't have anybody napping. We don't take a lot of breaks in the afternoon because everybody's big. They can kind of do their thing. But for us, that was it. We knew the kids were getting older and we'd want to be on property. They'd want to bring friends. And the flexibility is the other key point for us, because you're not going to the same place all the time. We own in Hilton Head, but we have never been able not to be able to trade in to where we wanted to stay at.
And of course, you also bought into Hilton. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I would assume that you buying into Hilton Head made sense since you lived in North Carolina and Hilton Head is in South Carolina.
Well, we did that because that actually is where we toured, was in Hilton Head. Oh. And at the time, the maintenance dues were cheaper, the points were cheaper, and we bought it resale. So we didn't buy it direct, so we bought it resale. So everything kind of lined up there. We've stayed at Hilton Head several times. Great, for us, it's a great midway point. We've stopped off there and driven on down to Florida, or just gone to Hilton Head. But you're getting quality because you just know what you're getting with the Disney name. You don't have to worry about, like we had to with our other timeshare, where you're trading in to some other location and it might not be up to par with what you had and you owned. It might be a little less quality. You don't have that problem with DVC.
Do you still own the other timeshare?
No, we sold that after we bought the DVC. We sold it.
Okay, so you sold it immediately afterwards.
Yep.
And I asked Tim, was there something that, kind of like that nagging thing in the back of your mind as to you shouldn't buy it? Was there something that you were worried about in terms of when you were buying it at the time?
No, we really didn't. I mean, we waited a while.
Okay.
After our tour, I don't remember how long. We waited a while. We were more concerned about getting rid of the other timeshare.
Oh, I see.
than we were about actually buying in. And again, we were doing it resale, so we weren't at the price everybody else was at. We were pretty set. We normally researched and knew what we were doing before we go into it.
What about you, Mike? What compelled you to? You bought in 92?
Three.
Early on.
Yeah, very early on in the Disney Vacation Club history. What sold you on it, Mike?
Well, unlike the others, we don't have children, so it wasn't a factor of so much needing the room. I just liked the bigger room. We kind of got spoiled. I got a trip as a honeymoon gift from my parents to Disney in '92, the year prior, and we stayed at the Village Resort, which is now part of Saratoga Springs, the same property, but they had torn down. But it was a big condo unit back then. And the first year I went on cash was we stayed at Dixie Landings. And while Dixie Landings is really nice, and I still love going there from time to time now that it's Riverside, it just wasn't the same. It didn't have the same amenities that even the Village Resort had, which was the full kitchen and all the other stuff. So we happened to pass one of the kiosks in '93. And one of the real selling points for me was the fact that they gave us the park hoppers until 2000.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, that would be a big
that would be it.
Yeah, that was kind of and it
7 years of annual passes. Yeah,
it guaranteed us to come back. So I pushed for it, and I had no business of buying it at the time. We still had 2 car loans. We had we both had college loans that we were paying off at the time. Probably had no business buying it, but we did, and it's paid off since. So,
were there any concerns at the time?
No, like Annette said, it was all about the quality. We did the tour. At the time, it was just Old Key West, which wasn't even called Old Key West at the time. It was just called Disney's Vacation Club. And we did the tour, and we went. Then they do it. They have slick. They send you into the smallest room first, and you wind up in the Grand Villa. And you look at that, and you're like, oh my God, I could actually stay here. This is available to me. Did
you find yourself trying to figure out who you'd bring? Because that's what we did. I was like, who would we bring?
Well, that's what we did. Even there, after the tour, we went back and we did the math about if we could afford it, and then we did the math who could we bring down. And the one thing that I'll always be thankful for is I was able to take down my parents who never would have probably gone on their own, or my cousins, and we brought down over 50 family members through the years.
Wow.
And I would say 3/4 of them would have never have gone on their own, but they went with us. And 2 of the family members actually bought DVC. So, yeah. So for me, I'm grateful that I was, because my father passed away a few years back. So I'm grateful we had those memories with him there with his brother and his family. And we just had a really great time. It's something I can never take back.
So now it's been for most of you at least a number of years since you bought in. Annette, what year did you buy in?
I've been trying to think through. I'm not real sure.
Okay.
I think we've had it for about 7 years.
Okay, so this decade.
Yeah.
So we're I guess you bought in at the time, and we'll go back to you, Tim. Did you ever have a regret?
No, I really haven't. I think the regret that a lot of people voice is, gee, I wish I'd have done it sooner. And that's one regret that I don't have, because we probably weren't in a position to do it sooner. I guess I'm not as brave as Mike. But
You're smarter than me.
Brave is a word.
probably, I guess my biggest regret would be not buying more points sooner, because the way that the cost has gone up, particularly buying direct over the last 5 or 6 years, is pretty dramatic.
Let me ask you guys this. One issue that I guess precludes me from buying into DVC is, I don't know about, with the exception of Len, I don't have, $16,000 laying around and, doing nothing with it. So, believe it or not, Len, no. And so in order to buy DVC, you're going to have to take out a loan. And I'm talking about buying
a loan for 16 grand. Please, just write. All right, fine. I was trying to think how many rounds of tequila that would buy for a group of 30.
Sorry, Gatsby.
Yeah, no, that's actually quite a bit of tequila. Anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say, and if you're buying from, it doesn't really matter who you're buying, Disney or resale. Getting a loan is pretty tough on timeshares, because that's what they are in the grand scheme of things in the eyes of banks. And ultimately, that leads people to buy DVC from through Disney's lending program, which has a interest rate of I think 10%, which is Len gives me a rate of about that much.
Weekly. 10% weekly.
So how much of that
bad should happen to you?
So Newell, I'm not sure how things have changed since '93 or whatever, but how did the money factor fit in for you, without going into specifics necessarily? But how did the financing and everything work out for you? Was it what you envisioned at the time? Was it a little more difficult, a little less difficult?
I wouldn't say it was difficult. It was comparable for what I was expecting. Obviously, the rate was different back then.
Yeah.
We had enough to put down a deposit, and we were able to swing the monthly payment. Well, we paid it for 10 years. When the bill came every month, I was like, "Oh, did I really do this? Was this a smart move?" Looking back now, I wouldn't have done it any other way. But at the time, it was, like I said, it was a bill I really didn't need, but I did need.
Right.
So we took a gamble. Fortunately, it worked out for us. But I don't regret it.
Okay. And Tim and Annette, I think you guys still paying it off, right? I think it takes 10 years typically, depending on how much you pay every month.
No, it's paid for.
Paid for.
Yeah, we bought our first contract through DVC, and they finance it over 10 years, but you can make early payments. Ours is long since paid off.
Oh, good. Okay.
So
I guess it seems like all three of you were. It made sense for you at the time for different reasons, and you didn't really have any regrets about it. Annette, any regrets about buying into DVC in terms of what you got and changing your mind? With the kids and everything growing up.
No, actually, I think, to speak with what Tim said, the biggest regret was we bought 150 points, and then we were like, man, we really need more. I think that's probably the biggest regret most people have, and that's the reason you see the add-on contracts.
Right, and that's
Sure.
that's something that Newell, you and I were talking about this last weekend, in fact.
Right.
About you had bought resale twice now, Mike, or 3 times?
3 times. I just picked up another 25 points. This is the third time.
Yeah, you like to buy little small contracts.
At this point, yes. The first resale I bought was a bigger contract, and then the 2 consecutive ones were smaller. But keep in mind, at the time, there was no such thing as DVC by resale or any of the resale outlets. You couldn't buy points from anybody but Disney. So you had to go through their lending. You had to go through their paperwork and everything. Now it's a little easier. The resale, especially DVC by resale, makes it really easy for us to pick up the extra points, and I'm glad we did.
Okay. Now, with the 3 of you that have bought DVC, there's 3 of us here who have not bought DVC. And for myself, I'll speak for myself. Reason we haven't done is I don't think our financial situation is stabilized enough for us to be able to necessarily be able to see far enough into the future to weather it. But Len, why haven't you bought into DVC?
Typically because I have to stay at a different hotel every night.
That's what I was just thinking.
So it doesn't really make sense for me. So it's more of an occupational thing than the fact that I wouldn't be there enough to.
Even when you go with like Hanny and Dawn and you guys do like a family trip, more than like, I understand what you're doing, research trips, but.
Yeah, I mean, when Hanny and I go, Dawn and Hanny and I usually go once every few years. We don't all go as a family very often. When Hanny and I go, she's more than happy to change hotels every night.
Okay.
Could you see that now, making those DVC reservations, guys? Well, I want a studio here, and then a one-bedroom the next night, and a two-bedroom. That would be comical.
That's exactly what it would be, too.
Scopa?
When did DVC first come out? 89? 90?
91, I think, right, Tim?
90, 91, yeah.
91. Well, I was thinking about it then, and it was, I don't know how much points were, $38 a point? I don't know. And I looked at it, and I didn't have a crystal ball. I had no idea what I'd be doing over the next 10, 15, 20 years. If I had known, possibly I would have purchased. But the idea that I really didn't know how often I would be going to Disney, number one. And number two, I had two children who were within 5 years of going to college. So those two items kind of put the DVC option sort of, off to the side. And I don't know if I have any regrets because, again, I really didn't know that I'd be going as often as I do. So, if you don't know, I mean, you can't Monday morning quarterback in this kind of a situation. So I don't really have any regrets.
No, it's not for everybody. You have to understand. It's not. It works better for some people than it does for others. And like I said, we don't have children. It's just the two of us. So I like to go and get the one-bedroom unit only because I can spread out. I have all this room. So whereas if I had a family, I may have my own children, I may have gotten a two-bedroom unit every time, or even the Grand Villa every time. So it depends on your situation, depends on your financial situation, if it's right for you or not.
I think it's the important thing you brought up, Mike, is that you have to kind of not only figure out your personal situation, you have to look at it, look at your habits, go back over the last 2-3 years and see how often you've gone to Walt Disney World, and what you spent on accommodations, and then go in and figure out how much it would cost you for DVC for the next couple of years, and see where you're coming out. If you're coming out comparable or better, I mean, obviously it might make some sense to go look into the Disney Vacation Club, and it may also vary. Tim, you could probably talk a little bit more about this, that sometimes the decision to buy into the Vacation Club may depend largely on what the special is that's going on.
Sure. Yeah, in addition to that, I think one other issue is that individual planning plays a big role in whether DVC is a good fit or not also. Some people plan trips on 6 weeks notice, 2 months, 3 months. They just decide to pick up and they want to go.
Len.
And you really can't go into DVC thinking that you're going to be able to call a month ahead of time and
get
that
wouldn't be me
at the beach club.
Yeah, that's the Len Testas of the world.
That wouldn't be me.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
DVC starts taking reservations 11 months in advance of your arrival. And for certain times of the year and certain resorts, there are people waiting to jump on the phones 11 months out.
Yeah.
And when the rooms are gone, they're gone. So
cool.
It's very much a first come, first served situation.
Cool.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you for taking some time to share your personal experience with the Vacation Club with us. And don't forget, you can visit Tim's website at dvcnews.com, and Twitter is DVC News, and you can read anything that ever happens with DVC. We always defer to Tim. So, Tim, thanks very much for your time.
Great. Glad to be here.
And if you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the WDW Today website at wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, the fabulous Annette Owens, and Tim Kresnewski, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid Judy, stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.